Well guys, as you might have noticed in more recent video output of mine, I've been progressively releasing videos that are both about INFJs and INTJs. I include that often in my video titles. I'm perhaps not doing that enough because there are videos where the titles only mention INFJs, but really the videos apply almost as much to INTJs. This is also a trend that's reflected in my books. I mean, I didn't actually use software to check this, but when I say use software, I could use the search function in Word for this. But I think if you compare the Ecstatic Soul and the Infinite Soul, like INTJs are more featured in the Infinite Soul. And I've been aware of that pattern myself. I've been aware of that trend, and I've been reflecting on that trend. And I've even discussed it in my videos before. And this is partly because I'm gradually coming to the conclusion, something that other people intuitively believe, right? Others don't, and I don't agree with them. I'll explain a bit more why in this video. That INTJs and INFJs are very, very closely connected people. I think a lot of people intuitively believe that either because they've had the experience of INFJs in their lives, particularly through significant others or siblings, either an INFJ relating to an INTJ or vice versa. Others intuitively believe that's obvious because they share NI dominance. And when your primary mode of existing is via the NI world and the alienation from external reality and inferior SE that accompanies that, wow, you're going to have a very strong connection there. So in this video, I want to explore, perhaps because there's lots to unpack here and I can't do that in a single video. I want to focus on what is the main reason why INTJs and INFJs are not seen as extremely closely connected types. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm not saying that INFJs and INTJs are not at all seen as connected types. Of course, INFJs and INTJs are seen as cousins for all the reasons that I just listed, by the way. But they're not necessarily seen as cousins that much more than INFJs and ENFJs, or INFJs and, well, I was going to say INFPs, but that's going to, in fact, a lot of my audience is going to disagree with this, which is a good sign, because those types are very, very different. I think they can enhance each other's growth, but they're very, very, very different types. Some people will say INFJs and ISFJs. Some people will say INFJs and ENFPs, right? Again, here, let's not confuse compatible types that enhance each other's growth and types that are intrinsically very close. INFJs and INTJs are super close in terms of how they experience the world. And the NI world has everything to do with that, but not only. The main reason why I think they're not seen as that close in some ways, close but not that close, is due to the perception that INFJs have of INTJs and the perception that INTJs have of INFJs, right? So let's look at the INTJ perception of INFJs. I think that's perception, and I'm not talking about the perception that individual INTJs have of individual INFJs. I'm more thinking about the general ambience, right, of intertype relations online, particularly. The generalized INTJ perception is that, INFJs are kind of like our cousins, but they lack authenticity. And that's because of that damn FE probably, like they're too nice to people, they put the needs of others before their own needs, and meaning that they sacrifice sometimes what they are really like. They have to conceal that, and that's just not good, it's you're not being true to yourself. Why do you do that? I don't relate to that, so I'm not that close to you, am I? There's a certain degree of truth to that. Now, if we use the conceptual apparatus that I've slowly been building over the years, including in my books and my latest book, we can use my particular model of different subtypes of INFJ to answer, well, that's true of adaptive submissive INFJs. And we know why, because these INFJs are so afraid of the world that one of their defensive mechanisms is the enhancement of introjective FE to the detriment of their NI subjectivity, which is kind of, dragged away from the front seat and put on the back seat. So it only concerns a certain kind of population of INFJs. It's true that a lot of INFJs go through that stage. It's possible that the majority of INFJs go through that stage. But again, if we follow my conceptual scheme, this is only a stage, and there are lots of INFJs who don't remain stuck there. Again, based on my experience on forums and Discords, you'll notice that older INFJs and older INTJs tend to get on very well. And I think that's because we're talking about mature INTJs and mature INFJs that have often transcended adaptive submission. And that also explains why they are able to see the closeness that ties them. There's something about INTJ authenticity that is even more resonant regarding the links between the two types, is that INTJs have issues with authenticity almost as much as INFJs do. It's less visible, you see. It's less visible because FE inauthenticity is directly perceived by other people, because that level of authenticity is about interpersonal relationships. So it's directly at the level of how you perceive by other people. So the perception of others is directly going to latch onto this lack of authenticity, whether it's perceived objectively and obviously, or in a more indirect way that's not completely verbalized. People have an instinctive sense that you're not being completely authentic. Happens a lot with adaptive submissive INFJs. Partly also because what they project, these adaptive submissive INFJs, is their own awareness, unconscious awareness, that they are not being very authentic. So that's true. The thing about INTJ inauthenticity, which is, I would argue, existentially speaking, the same level of challenge, is that, well, in the INTJ case, the inauthenticity is about, again, NI taking the back seat and TE placing itself in the front seat. And TE is not about interpersonal relationships. It's a much more impersonal function. But it still is a function that is going to prioritize the organization, the impersonal organization of the external world, at the expense of NI subjectivity. That is to say, at the expense of the authentic expression of the NI dominance individuation. It's going to be less obvious, quite a bit less obvious to the outside, because we won't be able to pinpoint, you're trying to act to please that person, or you're trying to act to please those people. No, but in a sense, you're acting to please the way your view of how the world works and adapting to that. And even if it's not interpersonal in the same sense, it's still not you. And a very important last point to make, lack of authenticity is ultimately disruptive to the person, because there's no way that you can be inauthentic without at some level being aware of it, and therefore having your self-esteem, your view of yourself, being damaged by that. An inauthentic person cannot be someone who has high self-esteem, or healthy self-esteem, I should say. It's always going to hurt that level of self-esteem. That would be more visible in the case of INFJs because of FETI, the axis, than in the case of INTJs, FIT. It being more visible does not mean it's stronger. It's going to be equally strong in the case of the self-esteem of INTJs. And so that's my first element of exploring the close relationship, very close relationship between INFJs and INTJs. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video, guys. Hopefully you did like it. Don't forget, I haven't written a book yet on INTJs. I would like to at some point. If there's a type that I would write about that's not INFJ, it certainly would be INTJ. And now you know why. The Infinite Soul, my latest book on the INFJ finding value, purpose, and meaning in a world that is often seen as hostile and deprived of these possibilities, while remaining authentic to who they are. All right, the link is right below if you want to get the book. I recommend you do. The Ecstatic Soul is about INFJ. It's a new look at the INFJ personality, particularly an in-depth investigation of how the INFJ mind works. And I think if INTJs read the book, they'll notice that there are huge similarities between them and INFJs. Links are below. And as usual, live below my channel is my Patreon page. Please consider supporting me to keep the channel going and me producing videos, lots of videos for you guys. You can interact with me there, suggest new content, and access bonus videos every 2 weeks, in-depth discussions of topics from my YouTube and from my books. Thank you very much, and I see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.